All right, Leviticus 2, let's call this one for Aaron and his sons because it talks about the offering for the priest, something I ordinarily would not talk about because don't try to spend a lot of time talking about money because I got a conflict of interest. So I don't like to, one, take up 5 minutes talking about it. But as I was doing chores today, I was listening to a dude who was going off talking about the preacher who got robbed during service a few weeks back. And I already talked about it, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But I can understand the perspective they were coming from because anytime you see a preacher who's got $1 million worth of stuff to steal on a Sunday morning, that's going to raise some eyebrows. And it's the butt of, it's good material for some jokes. And it ended up being the butt of some jokes. And they were some pretty good ones, I can't lie. But the social media influencer stepped out of his lane and started talking about what the pay structure or pay system should be in churches. And he's like, preachers should work and they should just volunteer their time and they shouldn't be paid from the church. And I was like, really, dude, where'd you get that from? Bottom line is I'm just going to, first of all, start out with the passages that just are flat out. That's just false. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 13 says, do you not know that those who are employed in the temple service get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in the sacrificial offerings? In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. Flat out, that's it. But like I said, we're in Leviticus 2, and it goes back to this principle at verse 3. But the rest of the grain offering shall be for Aaron and his sons. And it's going to reiterate it in verse 10. But the rest of the grain offering shall be for Aaron and his sons. Likewise, Leviticus 7, we're not going to read all of it, but it's going to talk about the different types of offerings and all the different types of offerings that go to the priest, not the least of which the guilt offering in verse 7 of Leviticus 7. The guilt offering is just like the sin offering. There is one law for them. The priest who makes atonement with it shall have it. And I'll post the rest of the verse, but I want to read from Leviticus 10 because it talks about the degree to which the priests are due, actually, the food that comes from the sacrifices. Leviticus 10, verse 12, Moses spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his surviving sons. Take the grain offering that is left of the Lord's food offering and eat it unleavened beside the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in a holy place because it is your due and your son's due from the Lord's food offerings, for so I am commanded. But the breast that is waved and the thigh that is contributed, you shall eat it in a clean place, and you and your sons and your daughters with you, for they are given to you as your due, and your sons due from the sacrifices of the peace offerings. And it's going to go on and on like that for a while. But bottom line is that ultimately it is one, our responsibility to pick a ministry that we know enough about to be able to understand what they actually do. So we naturally have respect for the work that goes on there. And two, whether or not they're earning their due has everything to do with, just like when I go to work, whether or not the people I work with are actually earning their keep or they're just collecting a check. It's the same thing with the preacher. Biblically, they're supposed to be paid, but whether or not they're earning their check or just collecting it, it's a different issue. So God's best to you as you go forward in him. Hopefully that gives you a footing in what the Bible actually says about preacher pay. And as a final note, maybe fact check what you're hearing on social media and understand that biblically, people who are influencers often speak on things on which they don't have expertise. And the Bible is one of those things.